And you were worried about a buffalo.
Right, the buffalo. And there was, every day I saw grizzly bears at some point. There were a couple places I did turn around, like instinct told me, yeah, I think this is getting a little dangerous here. So, because there was grizzly bears in some spots, and there were other places that were closed, and I respected that. I didn't want to, break any rules or any violations for this. It wasn't, I didn't want to be one of those statistics either. I had been
Sure.
talking to a few of the rangers out there. I know my first day out there, this woman was terrified. I told her like where I wanted to go and these things, and she's like, "You're all by yourself." I'm like, "Of course I am." Like, everybody does this by themselves. She's like, "No, they don't." So she was really grateful for my life. So my last day I was there, I made sure to let her know I was alive and I was heading on out, and there was no problems. And then I met a really interesting ranger. His name was, we call him Ranger Bob. I had to do, like, every time I took a backcountry site, I always had to take another bear class and watch their bear video.
Uh-huh.
So I got to know him pretty well, and we were going over maps together. And he was an old grouchy guy. He was tired of hearing about the treasure. So I know 10 years of people asking, or 9 years of asking, I'm sure everybody in Yellowstone was kind of tired of it. I do believe he had said somebody died the year before. I don't think it was ever really announced that this person was looking for the treasure or not, but they had died crossing the river. They were wearing gaiters, and I guess they slipped and fell and drowned. And he was making sure. I'm like, well, I don't have any gaiters, and I promise you, I'm not going to cross a river that I can't manage. So that was one. I was very careful about those things because people have died, and it's very tragic that they did. I think they took risks that no older person would take. So I always figured this wasn't too far away from the road. And it was a place that he knew very well, and it was a safe place. So I stayed in safer regions. When I started getting too far out in some of the areas, and like I said, instinct would kick in, like, I would turn around and go back to where I was, and I did take pictures of where I was going to go back, because one of the things I did find out there was you could cross the Madison River. It becomes the Madison River, and if you look at the maps, most of the lakes are named out there, but there was this one little tiny lake on the satellite images and on the map that had no name to it. And if you crossed the river and you went up this creek, and if you cut left, and I'm not a good map reader, I don't know how many miles it would have been, maybe 2 or 3, you would have found this hidden lake out there. And I don't know how many people have knew about it or have been that way, but that was where my self was going to this hidden lake. I just had a hunch about it, but I just went a little too early, and the rivers were a little too fast and high for me to make sure I was going to make it back safely and sound. And who knows, there could have been like a whole den of bears back there and really gotten eaten up. Um, so yeah, but it was fun. It was a blast. I mean, I had friends that would pull up maps with me. I mean, this is what I did besides like hiking, 20 miles a day, training for all of this to stay fit.
Uh-huh.
Was reading maps and trying to figure out this guy's mind. I had emailed Forrest a couple times when I first found out about it, and he definitely wasn't giving any clues, and I wasn't really asking for any, but he's a pretty all right person. And a lot of people always ask, like, do you really think he did this? And I always said, yeah, at the bottom of my heart, I think he did. I think this was something fun for him to do and get people out. I think a lot of people really enjoyed themselves doing it. I think some people got obsessed with it. I could see why. A lot of people, they did. They quit their jobs and they moved out west. And honestly, I was starting nursing school, and I had always said, well, when I get out of nursing school, I'm moving out west too, and then I can always look for the treasure. Um,
So you're not from the Rocky Mountain region then?
no, I'm the flattest of the flat. I'm from Illinois.
I'm originally from Ohio, so I can sympathize.
Yeah,
You guys,
it's hard when you get out there and I was carrying, oh, man, I was carrying probably about maybe 40 pounds, and I would, release all my weight at camp but of course take my food with me, just because I didn't want any bears to get a hold of the food and I didn't want to break any of those laws. But you get up to 8,000 feet and you're sitting here huffing and puffing. Like, I remember one person asked me, like, can I help you? And I'm like, no, it's fine. I just haven't had a chance to get acclimate to this altitude. I'm from like 0 below sea level. So yeah, it was, yeah, it's interesting out there. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's gorgeous. I have this fun story, and my kids can tell their grandkids that your crazy grandma went looking for this gold. Um, you
That's
know,
great.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I can't, I have no ills. I am super excited for the person who found it. I really am. Little jealous. It's last week I started like, meh, like the game is over. And that's like the saddest part about it, is that this game is over. You almost want someone to go and hide another $1 million out there so that people will go do this, because it was a lot of fun.
Do
I
you think
would have
that's a possibility? Do you think someone will copycat him?
I hope so. I really do. I think he may do it. I don't know. I don't know how easy it would be to once again hide something and come up with such an elaborate poem or riddle to where it would take people forever to find a treasure like this. I don't know. If I tell you what, if I were to win the lottery, I would do it. I would go buy gold and jewels and everything, and I would go hide it, and I would create a poem so people could do this adventure. I really would. It was a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of
Do you,
fun.
do you think it was just the prospect of finding a treasure that got people really excited about it, or was it more the riddle itself, like trying to solve this problem?
Both. Definitely both. I think it's probably 50-50 actually. Um, for me, it was both. It was 50-50. I love a good riddle. I love solving problems. And it definitely, I spent a lot of nights like looking. That poem's downloaded to my phone, so as soon as my phone lights up, I read the poem. I mean, it's still there too. It's so hilarious. So I do think people went out there looking for gold because they wanted money. And I think for a lot of others, it was a matter of figuring out where the heck this thing is at. I mean, you have like 3,000 miles to try to find this. And you never realize how big the world is until you get out to somewhere like that. And you're like, it can be anywhere. This is huge. And real funny stories. So my friends have laughed over this, and it's just kind of like one of those irony things. I was hiking down Madison, and I was like, oh, Blaze can be red, Blaze can be the sign, Blaze could be anything. And I was hiking and I was like looking around and just being observant. And I noticed in the middle of the Madison River this huge rock that was orange. I'm like, oh my God, maybe that's the Blaze. So I like run, I'm like running with my backpack, and I'm running over to like the edge of the river and to like look down, because that's what it tells you to do in the poem. And so I look down and I'm searching for this treasure, and I see all this white stuff everywhere. I'm like, what is all this stuff here? And I just realized that I just like walked into like this huge human pile of crap where people were like crapping in the woods, like fishermen.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a treasure.
Right. And so I'd always told my friends, I said, I went to go out to a treasure, but what I found was a pile of crap.
The irony.
Right.
Uh, so, I want to backtrack just a little bit.
Yeah.
First of all, did your son end up going to the Marines?
He did. He's deployed now. He did not like our camping. He did like our camping trip that we went on, our backpacking, but he wanted to get home and hang out with the boys. Hanging out with your mom isn't that fun, I guess, when you're that old. But we giggle and laugh all the time because now he says he can hike more than me, and I refuse to believe that. So
Well, if you talk to him again, thank him for his service.
I
That's
will.
great.
I will.
Um, so you were training for the PCT. What made you
Yeah.
want to do that?
Oh, that's been on my list for years and years. I have a very good friend. His name's Jason, and we used to hike together. And I used to, when Cheryl Strand wrote Wild, I said she stole my thunder, because I had been wanting to do the PCT long before people were reading Wild. I would
Yeah,
have to.
I just read that book. It's a really good book.
It is. It's a very good book. Um, I would say when I, even before like Into the Wild came out, everyone has these like these markers of when they start hiking. I grew up on a farm, and when I was a kid, that was like our highlight. We used to go and run in the prairie barefoot and dresses, and we would go in the woods, and everything was magical. And I've always been, drawn into the wild. So as I got older, you get into hiking and day hikes and this and that. And when I read Into the Wild, that one really hit home. I was like, this person, his personality, Chris McCandless, was so much very similar to my personality, because I could just like be by myself and just go and just, experience, just be in it, be in like the moment of just being out in nature. It's always been that way for me. So yeah, hiking and doing the PCT, that was a very long ago set in my mind. I just never, you get a little bit older, you start making more money, and you think about like time. I was like, well, I don't want to do this at 50. I don't think my knees would handle it. So I had set a timeline at like 37 was going to be my go. And that's when I really started working really hard at it. And most people who know me, um, they they go hiking with me. I try to get people hiking and really see the joy in it. So yeah, long time, long goal. Now I have to put it back on the list because I took it off to go to go look for this treasure. But once I get out of nursing school, that's going to be one of the plans, is to get, to be able to do. If I can't do the whole PCT like I want to, I'll definitely do about a 700-mile section of it.
Yeah. Now, being from the wonderful flatlands of Illinois, how do you train for something as brutal as the PCT? Because that sounds pretty tough.
It is tough. It's very tough. So I'm very fortunate that I do, not that it's like 13,000 feet in elevation, but where I live, there's this beautiful hike, and I turned it into about a 7 mile hike. That was one of my training, and it has about an 800, 900 foot, you go from 0 to 900 feet, and it's a bad hill. I mean, it hurts and you breathe hard. And I would do that, every single day. That was a part of my daily hiking regimen. But I also on the weekends would go anywhere and everywhere. Yeah. And then summertime, like I said, we had gone to Glacier to get used to the elevation there. Just, yeah, I would just go everywhere and just hike and hike and hike, and then walk on my treadmill, carrying my backpack. There's a lot of, from in my area too. There's the Ozark Trail. I did sections of that, and Tom Sauk did that solo. And you just start doing it, and you learn things. I mean, like my first solo trip, I definitely learned you never leave a water source without checking your how much water you have, because I did run out, and I was dehydrated by the time I got back to that water source the next day. So yeah, you just you just keep walking is what I tell everybody. You just keep walking and carrying your backpack, and whether, you can do 30 miles in a day on the PCT or you do 5 miles, you just keep walking. You get there.
Huh. That's I'm inspired. This is great. I don't think I could have ever built up the courage to do that by myself.
Oh, it's not that bad. It really isn't. I will say, like my first night in Yellowstone, I did my fingers. I was checking the sunlight to see how long I had before the sunset, and I had about 10 minutes when I looked from my fingers and doing that old trick, counting them down. And I was sitting in my hammock, and I had everything set up, and I was like, man, are you really doing this? Are you really going to sleep here tonight, knowing that there's bears? And we did this in Yellowstone, but I wasn't alone. And I thought to myself, oh God, it's getting ready to get dark. Do I pack up and throw all my stuff in the car and sleep in the car? What do I do? And the funny thing is all of a sudden, like I fell asleep, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw like the Milky Way, and I'm like, well, you're already asleep. No, nothing has eaten you. You haven't heard any footsteps. So we're going to go back to sleep and we'll wake up in the morning and do this again. So, but that first night I was a little nervous. I definitely was. My dad always jokes with me. He was a Marine too, so he taught me a few tricks.